You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. I have with me today my co-host Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark.
Hey Kat, great to be back.
Thanks for being on. I'm excited. We've got a podcast today where we're talking to some of our illustrious past presidents of NASBP. That is you guys, yeah. So as guests today with us, we have Lynne Cook, who is now retired and also consulting.
Hello there.
Thanks for being on
Glad
with us,
to be
Lynne.
here. Thank you for having me.
We also have Steve Cory, president of Cory, Tucker, and Larrowe Incorporated. Hey, Steve.
Hello. Good to see you, Kat.
Thanks for being on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And last but not least, we've got Todd Loehnert, LA Surety Solutions, a division of Alliant Insurance Services.
Kat, glad to be here.
I am glad to have you on with us, Todd. So before we go into anything else, I just would like to hear from each of you how you got into surety. Steve, you want to kick us off?
Interesting story as always. My grandfather was in construction. My dad was in construction. I used to work for construction companies during the summer. My dad told me if I went in construction, he would break my legs. A bit of a disincentive, even for me.
Very clear direction.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was graduating from college and I had an opportunity to go to graduate school. He said, I'll pay for it provided you go into insurance when you get out. So
Wow.
got out. Because he said, follow the money. That's where the money was, insurance companies. So got out of school. It just so happens that the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company was starting an MBA program. So joined their MBA program, went to New York for a little while, came back, and then pounded the pavement selling life insurance.
Really?
Wow.
Which I did for 3 years.
Wow.
And hated every minute of it. Then a friend of mine said, you got to go see this recruiter. She's very good at finding jobs for people and jobs they like to do. So I go see this woman who, at the time, I thought was old, much younger than me today. And she asked 1,000 questions, which I kept rolling my eyes and saying, this is a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And then she said, I have the perfect job for you, except I can't describe it to you. But it's with the Travelers Insurance Company in the bond department, of which I knew nothing about. So I go home and tell my dad. My dad goes, that'll be perfect for you because it combines insurance and construction. And so I went and interviewed at the Travelers. They offered me a job, and the rest sort of gets to be history.
So you found a way to interact with construction without getting your legs broken.
Well, to this point, anyway.
I guess I made some assumptions there. Lynne, can you tell us how you got into surety?
Sure. I actually did not fall into it. I went out looking for it. I graduated from Penn State, and when I graduated, it was with a finance degree. Had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, and of course, I went to the people at the center, to help you find a job.
Oh, like
Career
the
center.
Career
The career center,
Center.
the career
Yep.
center, right?
Yep.
Okay, and the counselor there says to me, I used to work for Aetna, and I was a loss control engineer at Aetna.
Wow.
And he said there was a job there that was called a bond rep. And it just seemed like the best job in the whole world. He said you get a car, you get to go out and see people, you get to crunch numbers, you get to do a whole lot of different things. So I said, very interesting. So I interviewed with both the Aetna and USF&G and was given opportunities at both companies to go into their training program. And that was in 1979. And I chose Aetna because I could stay in Harrisburg rather than moving to St. Louis. So there you go. And as you say, the rest is history.
Yep, there you go.
How about you, Todd?
So this is a true story.
Good to begin with the truth.
I went to this very inexpensive college, Denison University.
Ooh.
And when I got out, I had a painting company that helped me go to Denison. And my father didn't really think that painting after the 4 years at Denison was appropriate for me. So one night, he invited me to dinner at the Columbus Athletic Club with my Uncle Frank my Uncle Frank had boats, big house, all this stuff. Really didn't know what my Uncle Frank did. But he was the president of Corona Black, which became Willis. And then they had this other gentleman, Bill Hembry, who was the surety underwriter for Reliance from Cleveland. So I'm thinking I'm getting a free meal and some beer. And about 20 minutes into it, I'm realizing that I'm going to be interviewing in Philadelphia with Ray McNeil. So drive out to Philadelphia. To me, Ray looked like Santa Claus without a beard. And he sits back and goes through my transcripts. Well, this doesn't pertain, this doesn't pertain, this doesn't pertain. Did you play basketball? Yeah. We spent the next 45 minutes talking about college basketball because he's a college basketball freak. And he goes, the only thing you don't have is a medical test. Might have gone out with my friends the night before. He goes, but you're in good shape because we got a doctor on the 17th floor. And I'm like, I'm going to be fired before I get hired. And so I go up, and back then, if you lived in Philadelphia or the East Coast and you knew you might be transferred to Louisville, Kentucky, you would commit suicide because nobody lives there. But I thought it was a great deal, and moved on down. I trained in Philly for almost a year, went to Live Aid, so that was fun. And the rest was history. I moved to Louisville, met a young girl in Louisville, and I've been there since.
Ever since.
Awesome.
I love that because you all came into surety in very different ways. It's so cool to hear the different stories of how people can find the surety industry.
It really is. And honestly, the idea of trying to get that message out is really a good one because it's an industry that is exciting. It's different, but yet it's something new every day. I mean, that's the best part. You learn something new every day.
You know, I wonder, is that when you knew this was going to stick, that I really wanted a surety career? Was it because you were learning something new, or was there another moment that really kind of spoke to you, Steve?
Well, with me, it was my fascination and kind of passion for construction, you know, because I guess it was in my blood or genes, however way you want to say it. So when I could be part of it but not be in it,
Right.
And to your point, every day, after 40-something years, every day is still a new day. It's just amazing. And construction people are positive, can-do people. So to be around them and participate in their success and be part of it, you can't beat it. It's just amazing.
That's great. Was that true for you as well, Todd?
At first, I don't know if I knew what I was doing, but I got involved in NASBP early. I was incredibly fortunate to have Jack Curtin and Mac Walker kind of take me under their wings, introduce me to people like Spence Miller, Matt Cashin, Steve Cory. And I think that's when I really enjoyed it. It's just the networking, the friendships. Like Steve, I love the construction business, but I think I really knew it when I started forming the relationships with everybody here.
There's a lot of great people in the surety industry.
Absolutely.
And, getting to meet them really helped cement it for you. That's awesome.
And you know, and one of the cliches we always say, it's not a career, it's a lifestyle. And it is truly
I like
a
that.
lifestyle.
I like that.
Yes.
That's right.
So it was interesting learning how you got into surety when you became president of NASBP. Can you each tell me when you were president of NASBP and what your theme was and what kind of led you to that theme?
It was 2007, 2 years after Katrina, so it was a little bit of a
That's a tough
interesting
time
time for me. Yes,
from New Orleans.
But we went from thinking this is the end of New Orleans to we're going to rebuild this thing and it will be the biggest boom to ever hit the city, which it was. Tremendous amount of money. And everybody coming together to make it happen, which doesn't happen very often anymore. And then I think, so my theme was, we have a great story, we just have to tell it. And it's still, in my mind, reigns true today. It's just, how do you accomplish that and how do you do it? Because to Lynne's point, it's kind of an invisible industry. I mean, there's benefits to it in terms of it's not being so upfront and visible, but a lot of people just don't understand it and see the value in it, which is what's very important. What we do has a real value, and it's a value to the public, to the average taxpayer who doesn't even know it. And then I think, when I first went to my first NASBP meeting, the people who were in those leadership roles, they were the legends of the industry. And to at some point see yourself, not that I'm a legend by any stretch, for anything positive anyway.
Yeah, you are.
Let's qualify that. But to be at some point have a seat at that table and be surrounded by all the great people and to see all the passion that these people put into something to continue to make it better in a career and a lifestyle for people, that's the real joy in it, to be part of that.
That's terrific. Lynne, do you want to tell us when you were president and what your theme was?
Sure. I was president 2017, and it was our 75th year anniversary, which I had no idea that it was when I accepted the presidency.
So you got more than you expected.
Oh, yes, ma'am. And I just asked Mark, what was my theme? I didn't know. It really was the anniversary. And we worked around the past, present, and future is really what we did. It was a wonderful opportunity to step back and say, who came before? What has the industry done for others? What have we brought to the table? Where are we today? What are our positives? What are the opportunities? What are our challenges? And then how do we move into the future with this?
Yeah.
And so it was really quite an all-encompassing year, I think. It was the year that we changed our logo.
Yeah.
Which represents the past, present, future, and the people involved in NASBP, our affiliates, us, and it's the intertwining of all of us and how we need to be together to go forward.
Well, and I think your theme could even be the theme of these podcasts that we're doing now, talking to our past presidents, learning about what their presidencies were like, what their themes were, and then looking towards the future and changes that have happened and what's happened since your presidencies.
And I really thank you for doing this, quite frankly, because when we put the 75th together, we struggled to find documentation and information from people. Yeah. And so this is kind of nice. Yeah. When you do the 100th, you'll be able to use these little snippets of information.
Let's hope we're not here for that.
You mean you hope you are here? That's what I heard.
I hope I'm around. I'm not going to be here.
At that point, I'm sure we'll be able to live stream it to you wherever you are, Lynne.
Use the word live loosely.
Yeah. Might be underground.
Todd, how about you? When were you president? What was your theme?
I was president 2009 and 10, and my theme was fulfillment through participation. Most people, I'm actually, when I was in high school and younger, college, I was pretty shy. And really kind of didn't participate a lot until I was kind of pushed into it. Which once again, I can thank a certain person at this table, but especially Mac Walker and Jack Curtin, who really just not participating wasn't acceptable. I've said it over and over at NASBP meetings. Without NASBP, I'd be nothing. It's meant the world to me. In my agency, through my career at Wells Fargo, Rieger Harris, but at LA Surety, I demand it. I not only demand it from myself, but I demand it from Michael Baxter, Brian Ayers. It's just something we do. So it seemed to turn out well. I'll talk about my year later. It was a little struggle, but as Mark knows.
I mean, what strikes me is that in all of your kind of talking about your journey, that NASBP was very accessible. And maybe people have a misconception, like it's difficult to come to a meeting or get involved or whatever. I mean, it was very accessible.
Very.
Yeah. I mean, how did you start kind of deciding you wanted to get more involved in NASBP leading up to eventually becoming president? Lynne?
Well, okay. I I worked for Aetna for 18 years.
Yeah.
And in the surety business, if you weren't an NASBP member, we as company people absolutely didn't want to do business with you, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It really was the premier and still is a premier organization, and it's an expectation that surety professionals would be part of NASBP, right? Mm-hmm. So then when I moved over to the broker side, which you bring up the accessibility, and at that time, I have to say, it was still a little bit of a closed network, still a little, I hate to say that, guys. It was 1999. But I came to the meetings and got involved, and then Mr. Cory, I bring it all back to him, asked me to be the chair of a committee that was sinking.
You're reeling her in.
He's reeling
She took the bait.
And I took the bait. And then from there on out, it was just my life.
Well, what about you, Steve?
Well, I was fortunate because we started an agency in 1981. The two partners were both very involved in NASBP. That would be Percy Mayo and Bob Larrowe. So I went to my first meeting in 1981, and I went to see, in my mind, what makes these people successful. These are the people who really make this industry what it is. So what makes them tick? And I was just surprised how open and welcoming everybody was, even the people at the very top. They could not stop telling you about what they did and why they did it and what a great industry it was, primarily because of the people. And I looked around, and the successful people, the pattern was hard to figure out. They could be tall, they could be short, they could be backslapping guys, joke-telling guys, they could be serious, they could be from up north, south. It didn't make any difference. The key was they had passion for the business. They loved the business. And that was exciting to me, because figuring I didn't have a whole lot of talent, if I could be passionate about it, I might have a shot.
You could make up for it.
Just have to get serious about this.
Well, Todd alluded to something that I think that kind of corroborates what you just said. I think you had a very passionate presidency, wouldn't you say, Don?
That's one way to describe it. Might have had a few things going on. I want to get back to something Steve said earlier. Intimidation factor of looking in the boardroom, old leaders, to me, to this day, if Jim Pedita would walk in the room, I still get nervous.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm with you.
But just and like I said, back then, picturing yourself up on the front, it just was mind-boggling to me. But that's where all of those guys, Al, Sheriff, and helped me out, which kind of found hard to believe.
And they were happy to do it.
Yeah, they were willing to do that.
Yes.
Not only willing, wanted to. And really, that's part of the thing that we like the most, is helping the young people and bringing them in and showing them what it can be. I mean, if there wasn't that piece, I'd be missing something, I think.
But to get over back to the passionate year, this was a unique year. And Spence Miller, a really good friend of mine, was the first vice president. And Dick Foss, who was the leader of our association for a number of years, built up a unbelievably financially strong organization. And on August 19th of 2009, came to my office and resigned. He said he was retiring, but he was resigning. And at this point, I was like, couldn't you have waited like 7 more months? So it was kind of an interesting transition. We worked with Mark. We thought we had a great person right in our office that we could talk with. It might have taken a few more weeks than we thought, but it just turned out really well. So, but it was unique in that aspect. And then in my personal life, my mother had cancer and ended up passing away. It was like one event after another. but the help I got, not only from the leadership, but from Spence Miller and Bill Maroney, was incredible.
Well, there was something else I was thinking. There was a fighting for surety in Kentucky that I was particularly thinking about in terms of your
My blood pressure doesn't get
passion
up as
and
high.
advocacy. but that was an important.
No, it was. I mean,
effort that you
it
did.
probably ranks right up there, one of the top shams in the history of our organization. We had 3 contractors who had the good fortune of setting up a little trust fund of construction of courthouses in Kentucky. And they had about $740 million of contracts where they were seeing them at risk and didn't have to bond. Kind of unique because under Kentucky state statutory requirements, procurement, they do have to bond. And it led to a case and a lawsuit that went all the way to the Kentucky Supreme Court. Ended up prevailing, but it was a little stressful.
Right, but at the end of the day, they affirmed that they needed to have bonding.
They
on
have to
that,
have
which
bond.
was
Basically the procurement statute that once the subcontractors, CM at risk contractor are assigned to the CM at risk contractor, they fall under the general contractor requirements in Commonwealth of Kentucky. And they're like, I'm not. The argument was as we were doing it to get double bonding because they were bonding their subcontractors. But I said, listen, I'm just trying to follow the law. I'm trying to get a level playing field. So I had SFAA and everything. It all turned out for the best. And fortunately, our Chief Justice of the Supreme Court made the correct decision, which is you got to require bonds.
Yeah.
And they ended up having to pay their surety. It was almost $2 million of premium on bonds so this is 2010 on contracts that went back all the way back to 2006.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Steve, didn't you plant the seeds of a program that now is going great guns at NASBP?
Yeah, the 515, which was, just kind of one of those moments. I had been looking at a magazine, a business magazine in New Orleans, and it was the 40 under 40. And it was just identifying 40 young individuals who were showing potential to be, exemplary business people in the community. And kept looking around at the organization, and there was getting to be a lot of gray hair in the room. And so how can we make it affordable? And I always felt I was fortunate, as I mentioned before, to go early in my career and how much I learned and how people shared. And how could we come up with a way to get young people involved in the association, make it affordable for them, put them on a committee, get them to associate with each other and communicate and share experiences and learn from each other like we all did. And so it just kind of came together. And a couple of us brainstormed, and they came up, a group between 5 years, which at that point you're pretty committed, and 15, you're really committed and you're ready to take the next step in the organization. So if we could get them involved in committees within those those 2 parameters, 5 to 15 years, these are the future leaders of the industry. This is what we need to do. And it has exceeded far beyond, I think, anything we comprehended at the time.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, something that was said earlier about, we're not as well known as we should be, and we need to make the case out to the public about the value that surety brings.
Right.
I think, Lynne, you had a big hand in really getting us focused and thinking about how we could go about that.
Yeah. Remember, we went and figured out how much surety had been purchased and provided in the history of the 75 years. And honestly, I don't remember the number, but it was big. It was up. It was big numbers in the billions, most definitely, 100 billions. And it was like, you looked at that and my committee chairs, Matt and Spence, thought, well, let's put this up on the stage and show what it looks like for every dollar.
Yeah.
And it was a really good
was incredible.
visual.
Yeah.
It was a great visual, and it just kept on ticking throughout the whole meeting. It was pretty cool.
That is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting learning more about your presidencies, what happened, how you got into surety. You've seen a lot of changes happen in the surety industry. What kind of changes have you seen since your presidencies? Steve, you want to take it?
Well, I think it's an interesting concept because we also have our company partners.
Right.
And, there's always that interesting dynamic between us and them. And I even go back to the 515 when we first started talking about that, and they embraced it, and they offered to have the 515 group to come to their companies and do a presentation and an educational seminar, and that's still going on today.
It is.
Right.
So our relationship with them, I think, has come a long way. I really do, and in a good way, in a positive way. And then you can't help but layer over technology, which hasn't affected every industry. And then I think the other dynamic is consolidations, which is pretty intense. And you look around, there's a lot of people that the independents are a small minority compared to what they were before. So there's always a lot of dynamics in the business.
I think since my year, I brought back the fly-in, which I think is one of the more important things we do. I can't say enough for Mark and the staff at DC. It gets back into, hey, are we noticeable? Are we visible? We remember the days when we'd go up there and you'd say bond. Oh, yes, security bonds on Wall Street or whatever. You're like, no,
Making sure we're not a secret.
But it's just been a phenomenal job, and I think the advocacy at the grassroots level by our membership has been incredible. I know, my partner Brian Ayers has been lucky enough to be head of government relations. We made a call when we found out that PPP legislation was going to committee in 2 hours, and it slipped through. Fortunately, we had our governor's number 2 guy, Nate Haney, who Brian and I are really good friends with, got a hold of him, went into Fletcher's office. We got the thing put in for surety bonds. So stuff like that, and then the victories this year, which have been phenomenal. That's
what
been
victories
a big
are those, Todd? Do you want to talk more about that?
Title 41 and the indexing of inflation on surety bond, which is totally ridiculous. And we've been talking about that forever.
It's great to have those wins.
Yeah. And it's not political. I mean, that's when we would go, we have John Yarmouth, who's one of the more liberal congressmen. Then we also have Mitch McConnell, who's one of the older senators. But that's what we would always say. Our product's not Republican, Democrat. We're just protecting the taxpayer dollar. So why would you increase the risk? To have that pass is an enormous deal for our organization.
And I think there's 2 awards that say a lot about this association that you don't see in other associations.
What's that?
One is the Bruce T. Wallace Award, honoring the staff person who really got this organization up and running.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest award we give. I don't know a lot of associations that honor somebody who was part of their staff that helped make it work, just as you guys do today. And then the second one, I'll take some credit for that, and that is the Jack Curtin Award. And Jack was, I had no connection to Jack other than meeting him at the schools and knowing his personality. And whenever I had a question, it was easy to pick up the phone and call him. Might get a history lesson out of it, but he would give you a perspective that would help you understand and make decisions that you needed to make. And those 2 awards say a lot about the honor and respect we have for people from this association.
Right, and Jack was a past president
as well,
right?
Who had many years of service to the industry and the NASBP.
Yep.
So, what does that award recognize? The President's Award, the Jack John.
Well, like I say, I think it had to do with the fact that Jack had obviously gone through all the chairs. He was a walking history of NASBP and the surety business. He had an effect on all of our careers. He taught in all the schools. Right. And you don't want to forget those people. And you want to be like them in the sense that he left a legacy and he was willing to do whatever he needed to do to make you successful and the organization successful.
So it really honors those continuing characteristics in others moving forward.
Yes.
Terrific.
Sort of like a Spence Miller and a Matt
That's
Cash.
right. Yeah.
Two winners of that award.
There you go.
That's right. Mark threw me a little bit of a softball before that I didn't pick up on, which goes to our decision during my term to focus on getting the word out to the world about what is surety, and that surety is something that will help people succeed. It's not just protection. It's the pre-qualification. It's the ability for a young new business person who gets surety to get to the next level, to become a better contractor. We went through gyrations of a number of different task forces, looking at numerous items at the time. We decided to focus on marketing of surety. And this last 5 years, you guys have done an awesome job of putting the word out, of doing videos to show actual people who've used the product, people who have benefited from the product. And has that changed the industry yet? I don't know that it's changed yet, but it's certainly a seed has been planted, and I think we can grow it. And so I thank all of you who are involved with that project.
Well, and like Steve said, we're telling the surety story
Right.
and getting that story out there so we're not a secret, and people can know who we are and what we do and the value of our product.
Right.
And that, as you said, planted the seeds for a lot of different vehicles, including the one we're on right now.
That's true.
To get this story out there in ways that people want to digest it. So it's not just about reading something or seeing something. It might be through audio or what have you, and we're trying to meet those needs.
Right, and doing a very good job of it. The virtual content that we've been, producing, the subject matter is just extraordinary, and we've had wonderful people presenting. And the podcast, when you first started doing this, I didn't know what a podcast was. So here we are.
And now you're on one.
And now I'm on one, right. And that's 4 years ago?
Don't feel bad. John
3
Rent,
years ago? When did you start these?
John Rent still doesn't know what one is.
He still doesn't? Okay, then I'm feeling good.
You're ahead of the time.
All right.
Well, if you guys could give one piece of advice to a new bond producer based off your histories, what would you say to them now?
Well, I had an interesting situation too that you should bring that question. I played golf with two guys. One has been in the business 3 years as a surety producer. The other one has been in the business 3 years as an underwriter.
Yeah.
I only played 9 holes with them. They were probably glad of that. So I kept going on and on about how great this business is, and it's not a career, it's a lifestyle, and what really makes it is the people, and how fortunate they were to come to something like this.
Yeah.
And it is, if you embrace it, you get involved in it, it's just like this organization, you get a lot more back than you put in it. And I can honestly say that is absolutely true about NASBP. A lot of people say, man, why do you stay involved in it even after you retire and want to come back? Because you get more out of it than you give. And that's hard to beat.
That's such a great point.
It's true. I think I would tell a young producer that he or she needs to understand the business. A lot of insurance sales is just making phone calls like you did in the beginning of your job, of your career. This is more of a consultative, informational, and partnership. And you've got to understand the numbers. You've got to understand what the characters of the people you're dealing with, and how important the relationships with our underwriters are, our partners there, for them to be able to experience the contractor correctly, shall we say, and that our job is to be the conduit and make that happen and be the person to create that bond that they have.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is for a person to be knowledgeable. If you're not knowledgeable, you won't get the respect from your underwriters.
Todd, do you have advice for
and kind of supporting what Lynne said, I think you absolutely have to understand the product.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're selling, it's just not good. It's not good for our business to have people out there selling, quote, a commodity, which we are not. But without a doubt, I would, the number one priority would be to be involved in NASBP and to network, be able to grow your network so that if I have bond forum in Maryland, I can call Lynne. If I have a bond forum in Louisiana, I can call Steve. If I have one in San Diego, I can call Larry McMahon. Or if I have an issue with a obligee in a different part, you'll have this network all over the country. And it's phenomenal. But you have to participate. I mean, it's not just going to come to you. And I just think that's incredibly important. And if I was a young person in this business, I would make sure that if I got an interview or got into the business, my first question would be, are you involved in any SBP, and will I be?
It's a band of brothers and sisters. And I can tell you, if something happened to me, the people in my agency would know to pick up the phone to call a Matt Cashin or Spence Miller or Craig
your
Hansen.
NASBP network?
Yeah, absolutely. My brothers. I mean, I'm closer to them than some of my relatives because we eat, sleep, and drink this business, and it's kind of hard to beat.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think that's a lot of good advice for young bond producers out there now. I just want to thank you guys. It was so great having you on with us today.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get you on another podcast. This won't be one and done. You'll come back and visit us again sometime.
So there is a downside to this.
You liked it.
I'm a little embarrassed because Lynne was supposed to talk the whole time.
That's right. And all of this has been true stories.
True story. Yeah.
Real true
True stories.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk. Brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.